mean, are you trying to cause a problem between me and Margaret?
We were having a conversation, so I'm going to be transparent with her.
That's like high school.
I'm just telling her exactly what you said.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 13, Episode 7. And before we jump into things, I want to give a quick disclaimer that pretty much everybody in this episode got on my last nerve. And you guys know that I love Margaret, but even she tried my patience. I'm getting tired of hearing about the same old argument from all sides. This whole thing about Margaret having an arsenal of information and trying to use it against everybody. Like I've said many times before, they all do that. So to hear them go back and forth about the same old issue, it's tired. Also, is it me or does Jackie seem so miserable this season? Girl, I understand that you were demoted and you're upset about it, but every time you're in a scene, it can't always be bringing bad news about somebody else. And it seems like Jackie is hyper fixated on Danielle. Now, granted, do I believe Danielle's story about why her and her brother fell out? No. But at the same time, every time we see you, Jackie, you're always talking about her. I understand that you don't like her, but for her to live in your mind rent-free like this, it's a bit embarrassing. You seem panini pressed over this woman. But y'all, I have a lot to say, as you guys can see. And without further ado, let's just jump right on into it, because you guys already know that we don't have a minute to spare. Now, we open up this episode with Danielle and Rachel Fuda going shopping, and we learn that they're getting some outfits together because Melissa and Joe Gorga are having a luau-styled party at their shore house. So while they're shopping, Rachel says that she really likes Danielle a lot. She's a great friend, and she loves how fun Danielle is because this group is intense, and it's nice to have an ally. Now, Rachel, like I said in the last recap, you seem really nice, beautiful family, but you are a bit boring. And I'm getting tired of hearing these newbies come on and talking about, oh my gosh, it's just such an intense group of women. Well, what did you expect? This show has been on for, what, 16, 17 years? You really thought it was gonna be a cakewalk? Joining a group of women who have already established friendships and they're on national TV and the whole premise is us seeing some drama. You really thought it was going to be easy? Again, I don't know what these women are expecting when they join a Real Housewives franchise. But for next season, I think that it should be swapped. Rachel Fuda should be demoted to friend of, and Jen Fessler should be full-time. Just my personal opinion. But so far, Rachel Fuda is not giving what the girls said she was supposed to have gave, in the words of Rolling Ray. Now, mind you, everybody in this group, for the most part, has a shore house. Rachel Fuda says that Jen Fessler and her husband are going to be staying with them. Then we learn that Danielle and her husband are going to be staying with Bill and Jen. So now they change gears in conversation and they bring up the baseball game. Danielle brings up her conversation that she had with Joe Gorga. She says that Joe Gorga told her never lose hope. And then she goes on to say that she doesn't believe that her and her brother will ever be close again. Again, like I've been saying, I'm not believing Danielle. There is more to the story than this, because I highly doubt that her brother cut her off over Instagram. And if that is the case, then he needs to get some help, because that's not what a rational person would do. And another thing, I'm so tired of folks coming on reality TV trying to get a big check and some fame, but they don't want to give us their real story. Either tell us what really happened or keep it on the playground. But don't come on here with some BS, half-ass story and then get upset when folks poke holes in your story and want to get to the bottom of what really happened. So now we see Danielle and Rachel bring up the whole Jen Aiden versus Margaret beef, and Danielle says that it's a shame because she wants them both to be good. For the love of God, I want everybody to stop trying to make fetch happen. Jennifer Aiden and Margaret Joseph will never be friends. It is what it is. Let the dream die of them ever coming together is not going to happen. So Rachel brings up what Jen and Teresa told them both at Danielle's daughter's birthday party about how it's better to keep Margaret as a friend rather than having her as an enemy. And then Danielle says, well, if we're being honest, remember that Margaret's ex-best friend exposed her and said that Margaret does keep dirt on people to expose later on. Then you have Danielle reminding Rachel of how Margaret exposed Bill's affair and what she did to Teresa and Louis last season. We can already see that there will be friction later on between Danielle and Rachel. Rachel Fuda is on Dolores and Margaret's side, and it's clear that Danielle is on Teresa and Jen Aiden's side. Now, when we jump to this next scene with Teresa and Jen Aiden going jewelry shopping, I have a few questions. We see them talking about the upcoming weekend. They're all excited to be going down to the shore, and we learn that Teresa's going to be staying with Jen Aiden. So you have Jen asking Teresa if she's ever stayed at her brother's shore house. Teresa says no, and then she brings up the fact that Melissa and Joe are having Margaret and her husband stay with them, and she's a bit annoyed about that because she wishes that her brother would ask if she wanted to stay with him.
It would have been nice for my brother and Melissa to try to make things better, to ask Louis and I to stay at their house.
I can't imagine my brother coming down to the shore and not staying at my house.
Now, here's where I'm confused because I've been watching Jersey since season 1, episode 1, and if I remember correctly, Teresa had her own shore house. So for her to act like she's upset that Joe Gorga has never invited her to stay with him, I'm like, but sis, you had your own beach house. So why would he invite you to stay with them when you had your own too? And of course, you have Jen stirring the pot, and she's like, well, maybe Margaret has stuff on them too, and that's why they kiss up to her, and that's why she's staying with them. I mean, for the past few seasons, we've seen Margaret stay with them, so it's not a surprise that she's staying with Joe and Melissa again. I mean, I don't know what Jen is saying. Like I've been saying, I don't understand why they keep acting like Margaret is this big bully who's to be feared. I don't view Margaret like that. They all play the same game. They all play dirty. They all spill tea on each other. So again, I'm not here for this whole thing about, Margaret, watch out for her. She'll spill your tea. She has dirt on you. You guys all have dirt on each other. Now we see all the ladies packing up for the shore. We learn that Dolores is also going to be staying with Rachel Fuda. Paulie's not going to be there, but she lets Paulie know that Frank is upset that she won't be staying with him and Brittany. And Paulie says, well, that's right. You're enforcing boundaries. And I'm just not here for this whole Frank storyline about him being pressed and upset that she has a new man now. Frank, let it go. You and Dolores have been divorced for over 25 years. It's about time that Dolores has moved on and found somebody else. Plus, you have a girlfriend. So why are you upset that your ex-wife does not want to stay at your shore house? Now, we see everybody arriving to the Jersey Shore. Melissa and Joe arrive to their house. We see Rachel Fuda and her husband at theirs. And we see the Aidens at their house. Jen is so happy because they just bought their own shore house. They're right on the boardwalk with all the action going on outside. The previous owners left them the furniture, and Jen said, that's good for us. We're not putting any money into this house. The way Jen Aiden is so fixated on having the best, I was a bit surprised that she didn't want to renovate anything. I would have at least bought some brand new furniture and some brand new beds, but hey, if she likes it, that's great. But anyhow, we see Teresa, Louis, Danielle, and her husband arrive. They're sitting down and eating. And of course, Teresa says that she's happy to be there, but she still wishes that her brother invited her to stay with him. So now Teresa says that, I think it was last year, Gia asked to stay with Melissa and Joe at their shore house, and Melissa said no.
Gia asked to stay there once and Melissa said no.
Melissa said no.
Now, I find that a bit hard to believe that Melissa would just say no like that. Why would she say no to her own niece? And Joe and Melissa made it clear that they have, I think, 7 or 8 bedrooms in their shore house, so they have plenty of room to accommodate their niece. And like I said, I could have sworn that Teresa did have a shore house of her own, and even if she didn't, she has more than enough money to rent one for the summer. Again, y'all, a lot of this doesn't make any sense. I did watch the after show. Melissa did deny ever turning Gia down about staying with them.
I just am not talking about the kids.
Okay.
It's like so sad.
And then
We would say no. Okay.
So now we flip to Melissa and Joe. They're at their shore house, and of course, they start talking about all the drama going on in the group, and Joe brings up his conversation with Danielle at the baseball game. So he says that she was telling me something about how her brother doesn't speak to her because of Instagram. So now Jackie interjects and she says, "May I say something? Coming from somebody who doesn't speak to her own sister, Danielle is leaving something out because this story makes no sense." Now, Jackie, let me also get on you for a quick minute too, because you have a lot to say, but you have yet to tell us the real reason why you and your sister don't speak. The 4 seasons that you were on this show as a full-time cast member, we never got the real story about what happened. All you said was you guys don't get along and you guys don't speak. You have a lot of mouth for somebody who's keeping quiet about their own situation. So even Melissa agrees that Danielle's story isn't adding up. She goes on to say that Joe and Teresa have gotten into huge blowouts over the years, and even they're able to speak and be cordial. So the fact that Danielle's brother would cut her out of his life over Instagram makes no sense. And that's an excellent point, because we've seen Teresa and Joe go at it. There have been physical altercations. Joe called his own sister garbage and scum on national TV. That fight that went down at the christening, season 3, episode 1, that is definitely going down as one of the most chaotic moments in Housewives history. And if they can still talk to each other after that happened, then I'm really not buying this whole story about Danielle and her brother. Something else went down. So Margaret, here's where I need to just clock you for 30 seconds, because there was no reason for you to bring up Teresa inviting your mom to the wedding, but not Melissa's mom. You already know that things are super tense between them. You guys are trying to have a fun weekend. Why bring any of that BS up? Like, enough. And Margaret, I love you, but I do get irritated when you instigate and you want to stir the pot and make things even worse. So now we jump to the day of Melissa and Joe's luau party, and I have to say, they did a great job. When I tell you the food looked amazing, as it always does, because Jersey always brings it. The setup, the decorations, they had the dancers there, the bartenders.
I love it. I love it.
So we see everybody show up, all the ladies are there, all their other guests are there. And of course, we can't just have a good time. There always has to be some drama in the mix. So we see Margaret, Rachel Fuda, and Jackie talking, and Margaret is pretty much forcing Rachel to tell her what was said about her when they were all at Danielle's daughter's birthday party. So Rachel says, "Look, Margaret, Teresa told me that you're better to have as a friend than an enemy, and Danielle pointed out that you probably have an arsenal of information on people." So now Margaret's really pissed, and she's like, "Excuse me?" Danielle said, "What about me? Why would she say that?" Did anybody else scream when Margaret said, "This is coming from a woman who calls herself the bougie mama"? Really? So now Margaret calls Melissa over, and she's like, "Melissa, can you believe what was said about me?" Now, personally, if I'm at a party, I am not going to be discussing any drama or mess. We are here to have a good time. And I'm definitely not going to be calling over the hostess to talk about this either. I feel like Margaret does a bit too much sometimes, and she's so committed to getting the most screen time and trying to be relevant that she's always trying to talk about the drama. I'm just not going to be at a party talking about people that I don't like. That is very much pressed behavior. So now we see Margaret confront Teresa, and she says, "Rachel told me what you said about me, Teresa. If we made up, then why are you speaking poorly about me?" So Teresa's like, "Excuse me, I don't remember saying that about you." Then she gets mad at Rachel Fuda, and she's like, "Rachel, really? Are you sitting here stirring up mess between me and Margaret? Like, that's not cool. So now Teresa says, look, Margaret, I didn't say anything bad about you. All I said was, if people get on your bad side, you're very ruthless. So Margaret's even angrier hearing that. And I said, but Margaret, let's not, because that is the truth. And also, that's not the worst thing that could be said about you. I mean, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't be upset if somebody said, don't mess with Brooke, because if you do, she's a bad enemy to have. That's the truth. I'm not going to be mad about somebody saying that. In my opinion, I think that it's good that you do warn people, like, okay, if you do mess with her, it's going to be a problem. Personally, I don't think that that's the worst thing that could be said about somebody. But on the flip side, it's very hypocritical for them to all act like Margaret is the big bad wolf, when in reality, they all do the same thing when they're angry. But now you have Margaret saying that she's upset to hear this because Teresa is pretty much undermining her character. So now Teresa says, look, Margaret, me and you are good. Everything is fine. I don't think that I said anything bad. And then Margaret says, historically, I haven't done anything bad to anybody. And I said, now, Margaret, girl, I am on your side. But you do have your messy moments. Let's not act like you don't. Your hands are not all the way clean, sis. Now, as the party's going on, we see Joe Gorga getting everybody good and drunk. He's pouring the Casamigos in everybody's mouth. We see Bill crawling by the pool. When I tell you that Bill and Jen are always the first people to get shit-faced, and it's no judgment, because I get it. But it's just so funny how the party will be going on, and they're always the first two to be just completely messed up. Now, I was screaming when Margaret said, of course Bill is wasted. That's the only time he can tolerate being around Jennifer. And I said, now she has a point, because it seems like the only time they can stand to be around each other is when they're at a party drunk. We see a quick scene with Dolores and Frank talking. Of course, Frank brings up Paulie. He says that it's a shame that Paulie's not there and how it's really sad that him and Paulie can't get on the same page. Dolores says the reason why he's not here is because of a health problem. Remember, in last week's episode, Paulie had heart surgery. So she's clarifying that it's not because of Frank, it's because of his health. And he was also irritating me when he brought up how sad he was that Dolores isn't staying with them at their shore house and she's staying with Rachel Fuda. So now you have Jackie asking if Frank has ever reached out to Paulie to hang out, and Frank goes on to say that he can't get in contact with Paulie. He tried to have Dolores be the middle person between them. And now Dolores gets upset and she's like, Frank, nobody wants to hear this. And I was ecstatic when Dolores walked away from Frank. She said, you know what, bye. I don't even want to do this anymore with you, Frank. It's the same old thing. And I'm just happy that Dolores is putting her foot down and saying that my happiness comes first. Again, I just don't get why Frank is so bothered by the fact that his ex-wife has moved on. Now, we've already established that Frank is most likely doing this because he's trying to keep his spot and his check on this show, because I told you guys before that the Jersey husbands are the only husbands who get paid. And a lot of you guys were asking me, by the way, why don't the other husbands on the other franchises get paid too? And the quick answer to that is because with the Jersey franchise, the whole entire dynamic is family. So there's a lot of involvement with the kids and with the husbands. So because of that, since the husbands play a major part in the storylines, Bravo sees fit for them to get paid as well. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but I have heard from sources that the Jersey husbands get paid anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000 an episode. If I had to guess, I would assume that Joe Gorga is getting paid the most out of the husbands because he's been on the show since season 3.
Bling, bling, bling. Bitches is mad.
So So that's really the main reason why Frank is afraid that Paulie's going to come in and steal the show and he'll be out. Because if Frank is out, then that means no more Bravo check for him. But honestly and truthfully, this needs to be the last episode that I hear Frank whining and complaining about Dolores having a new man. I don't want to hear this anymore. Frank needs to grow up. So as the night's going on, we see Jen Fessler, Margaret, Rachel Fuda, and Teresa talking, and now Louis walks over to join them. So now Louis and Teresa start talking about their wedding. They say that they want everybody to have a great time. So of course, Jen Fessler has to be messy, and she's asking Teresa if it was an oversight that they didn't invite Melissa's mom to their wedding. Teresa says, girl, it was not an oversight. I didn't want to invite her. It is what it is. We're not close, so why would I invite her to my wedding? Now, one thing about me, I am never too big to acknowledge when I have jumped the gun on a situation, because I remember saying Teresa's wrong for that. She should have invited Joe's mother-in-law. And then when I found out the real reason why she didn't invite her, I said, okay, I get it. We learned that 10 years ago, when all that drama happened after the christening, Melissa's mom and sisters got on social media talking badly about Teresa. Teresa goes on to say that because of that, she always kept her distance. And while she forgave them, she never forgot what they did. Now, I'm not going to hold you guys. You guys know that I hold a grudge. So I definitely understood her reasoning, because I don't know if I would have forgiven that either, because that is hurtful. You have your family dogging me out when you guys could either come to my house and talk to me about it or pick up the phone and call me if you had an issue. So I understand why Teresa still is holding a grudge about that, because I'd be pissed too. Like, you have your mother at her big age talking about me on Twitter. Are you serious? So now Louis interjects and he reveals that earlier that day, he went up to Melissa's mom and apologized for not inviting her to their wedding. So Teresa was looking at him like, are you serious? Why would you do that? And she was trying to hide it, but she was really pissed. Now, Louis, I understand that you were trying to be the bigger person. You're trying to be a gentleman, but that looks really bad to give somebody a secondhand invitation. Please do not ever give me a pity invite.
No.
I don't believe in going anywhere where I'm just tolerated. And also, I would never want anybody to feel like I'm pressed to be at their event. Like, that's just me. You'll never catch me saying, oh my gosh, why wasn't I invited? No, I'm good. I'm a first round draft pick, okay? We're not second draft or third string, or however they say it in sports terms. But if I'm not at the top of your mind, I don't need to be there. And I was irritated with Jen Fessler and Margaret pretty much trying to force them to invite Melissa's mom. Leave it alone. At the end of the day, feel how you want to feel about things, but it is her wedding. Why are y'all so pressed? Be happy that you got invited. When they showed the guys waxing Rachel Fuda's husband's hairy chest, I did not need to see that. And also, that is so unsanitary. And then I saw in the after show that Rachel's husband woke up with third-degree burns. I was like, you could not pay me to have somebody who's not licensed do that. Like, again, Joe, you guys do way too much. I understand trying to have fun and trying to haze the new guys in the group, but again, you just go too far. And then Rachel even said that he got all these ingrown hairs because of that. So now we see Jen and Jackie having a heart-to-heart, and Jen is wasted at this point, but she's going on and on about how the news about Bill's affair traumatized her daughter, and she'll never forget that. And I said, again, sis, your anger needs to be directed at Bill. Bill is the one who created all this mess when he cheated. He is the only person to blame in this situation. Period, point blank. But then you have Jackie saying she understands where Jen is coming from, and she gets how Jen feels because her daughter was severely traumatized too when those rumors came out about Evan cheating. She goes on to say that her daughter thought that they were getting a divorce and how it was a very painful time. So Jen continues on by sharing that she and Bill went to therapy and how their biggest issue right now is about how they raise the kids. She feels that Bill is too strict, he's too focused on academics, and she gets upset when Bill tells her that if you want the kids to be average, then they'll have an average life. And she feels like Bill can be very insensitive and very demeaning. So now we see her and Jackie share a hug, and I find Jackie and Jen Aiden's dynamic so fascinating because they were also like oil and water in the earlier seasons. Remember when they first joined the show? They didn't get along. They were at each other's throats. So to see them all hugged up on each other and listening to each other and consoling each other, it's so funny to see. But honestly, I don't think that Jen is happy. I don't think that Bill is happy. I know a lot of you guys keep saying, well, marriage isn't perfect and this, that, and the third. And while that might be so, there should still be respect among both people and an expectation that they're going to be faithful to each other. I don't think that that's too much to ask for. Now we end the scene with Jackie, Margaret, Jen Fessler, Melissa, and Teresa all talking about Danielle. And Jackie is like, look, I do not believe for 1 minute this entire story about Danielle and her brother. Now, meanwhile, while they're talking about Danielle, Danielle can hear them. And she's like, I hate hearing my name in conversations that I'm not in. So Danielle's pissed. She goes to the side with her husband. And now Melissa comes over to her and she's like, hey girl, how are you feeling? And she says, look, they are over there talking about you, but they just have questions about this whole story about you and your brother because they don't buy it. So Danielle gets angry. She says, Melissa, stop right there. I can't hear a word you're saying right now. The story about me and my brother is the truth. And now she wants to leave. So she's like, okay, babe, let's go. She goes over to Jen, Aiden, and Teresa, and she's like, let's go, girls. I don't want to hear this anymore. And now they get back in the van to go back to the house. Now I said, Danielle, if you were really that girl, you would have walked up to all of them, confronted them, and just set the record straight. And again, I am tired of these women joining reality TV shows, giving us bits and pieces of stories, and then they're upset when the audience and their castmates have some questions because the story isn't adding up. Danielle, what did you expect? If you did not want people to talk about this, you should not have brought it up. But you see Danielle going off in the van. She's talking about how her and Jackie are both from Staten Island, but Jackie's an asshole and she's the better version of Jackie. Then she goes on to say that these ladies do not want her to be their enemy. Now again, sis, if you're so big and bold, then why didn't you confront them? Why did you leave the party? It looked a bit cowardly to me. Because if you really are that tough girl like you claim, you wouldn't leave. And it bears repeating, but Danielle, I'm sorry, sis, but this story doesn't make any sense. There's too many holes in it. I highly doubt that Instagram is the reason why you and your brother aren't speaking. Until you tell us the real story, we're all gonna have some questions. Y'all want the checks and the fame, but you guys don't want what comes with it. And no offense, Danielle, but nobody's scared of you. So that whole display in the van talking about, oh, I'm a bad enemy to have and you don't want to mess with me. I said, okay, girl, please sit down. But y'all, that was the episode. Jersey is finally giving us something, thank God. And next week's episode looks really good, especially seeing that sneak peek of Teresa revealing why Joe and Louie are on the outs, because Joe tried to get Louie to invest in some failing business and Louie lost $250,000 because of that. That's gonna be some tea. But y'all, I hope you all enjoyed my recap. Thank you all so much for watching. And you already know what to do. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Bye.